I had an old camper van that I'd drive to the woods behind my aunt's house when I wanted to relax. It wasn't fancy, just old and used, but it worked well for my small adventures. Around 2019, about 4 years ago, I took it for a regular camping trip. I drove for a little while, about a mile, on the bumpy road. Then I discovered a nice, snug place among the trees. I arranged everything, made a fire, and opened some drinks. Usually I'd come here with friends, but this time I came alone. As the sun went down, I added more wood to the fire. When it got really dark, I heard some noises. It wasn't the usual sounds of animals in the woods. It sounded more like someone walking around. I looked around but didn't see anyone. That went on for a really long time, maybe about 20 minutes. It made me really nervous. Having someone walking around where I was in the dark was something I'd never dealt with before. So I put out the fire, locked the van really well, and peeked out the windows for an hour. But I didn't see anything at all. I've camped here a lot and never had anyone find my spot, especially not at night without a light. I made sure the locks were secure and went to sleep. Luckily, I fell asleep without any trouble. The next morning, I woke up and had my morning coffee and breakfast in the van. I didn't feel very safe going far away, so I took a quick walk instead. I looked for footprints but couldn't find any. I wasn't sure if it would help, but I put on my handgun to stay safe. When it got dark, I started a fire in the pit to chill out and take my mind off things. I sat outside for a bit and felt better because nothing strange was happening. I drank some beer and listened to the sounds of the forest until I got tired. When I got up to put out the fire, I noticed something. There was a person near the trees looking at me from about 25 feet away. It made me feel really scared. When I saw them, they ran away and vanished in the dark. I hurried to pack my things and went inside, locking the door. I thought about leaving the next day because the camping trip didn't seem enjoyable anymore. 2 times already, they came near my van without saying a thing. It felt spooky. I stayed alert, looking out the windows and listening carefully for any sounds. Later, when I was starting to fall asleep in my chair, I heard fast footsteps coming closer. I stayed silent, holding onto my gun, wishing they would go away. Someone was outside my door. They didn't talk, just stood there a while. After that, they went around a van and left quickly. I couldn't sleep all night until morning. As soon as it got light, I packed and went home. When I was coming back from my trip, I stopped at a store to get some things. While I was talking to the person working there, I mentioned where I'd been camping and the weird thing that happened to me. They got really surprised and told me about a guy who used to live alone in those woods a long time ago. He stayed away from people and liked walking around there. He died a while back, but some folks think his ghost still goes around the woods looking out for the place. I was very scared. It didn't clarify the strange things happening lately, but it made everything even more mysterious. Maybe someone was trying to scare me using the local stories? Or maybe there was something else happening in the woods? I couldn't stop feeling like there was something hidden that I wasn't seeing. That meeting made me think if there was more going on than just someone walking around. It scared me and made me reconsider my future camping trips. When I was in 8th grade, I went to a special camp for boys that lasted a month. It was during the summer break. Imagine this. There were small cabins in the woods, a small lake, places to make fires, and even a court for playing volleyball on sand. Camp was about a 4-hour drive away from our town. It was an old place, but they still used it for camps like ours. When we arrived, I chose a cabin, unpacked my things, and arranged my space. Some of the guys I shared the cabin with wanted to explore the forest before dinner. The camp rules were simple. You could wander as much as you liked in the forest, but always make sure you could still see the cabin. While we were walking around, one of the guys saw something weird. There was this man who looked really old, maybe more than 50 years old. He was just hanging around, watching us. He looked a bit messy, with dirty clothes and a rough beard, like someone who spends a lot of time outdoors. We thought he might be a camp counselor. He smiled at us, and I waved back in a sort of awkward way. We saw a guy and hurried back to our cabin. At night, we told a camp counselor about him. They took it seriously and looked for him, but he wasn't there. We realized most counselors were young, maybe under 30. They didn't say it, but it seemed like they didn't know the guy we saw. For a while, we didn't feel like going out much because a person scared us a lot. But then, things got even scarier. One night, I heard someone trying to open our cabin door. Normally, a counselor would knock around 11 p.m. to remind us to lock up. Sometimes, if we were already asleep, their knock would wake us up. I thought something was going on, but I didn't know what time it was. I was the only one awake, so I shouted that we should all be in bed. Right after I yelled, a flashlight turned on outside and shone through the windows. Someone was trying to look inside. A few more kids woke up, and I signaled for them to hide or crouch down. Someone was walking around our cabin and shining a light through all the windows. I don't know if they saw me, but the light passed over me many times. After about 5 nervous minutes, the light turned off, and everything got really quiet. I told everyone else what happened. It was 4 a.m., and the person outside wasn't a counselor. We stayed awake until morning. Then, a counselor for teenagers arrived to wake us up for breakfast. We told them everything that happened. They took us to the adult counselors, and we explained everything again. What the adult counselors told us next was really scary. One kid from a different cabin saw someone trying to open their door when they came back from the bathroom. At first, they thought it might be a counselor, but then they realized it was someone trying to break in. That kid described the person. They had a beard and were wearing dirty clothes. Then they remembered it was the same person we saw in the forest on the first day. Camp got really scared and closed to keep us safe. Later that day, a bus took us all back home. A long time has passed since that happened. Recently, I checked and saw a report. The police were called after we left, and they found a tent close by. Guess what was inside? Just simple things and lots of old-style pictures of the camp, the buildings, the lake, where we had fires, everything. Scariest part is there were pictures of us, mostly far away, like someone was secretly taking them. And the worst part is the pictures taken at night through the windows of our cabins. After a while, I met a guy from that camp again. We were chatting about the old days and how strange it was. He tells me something shocking. He found a diary hidden in his cabin from a camper ages ago. In it, the camper talked about that creepy guy in the woods taking pictures. And the weirdest part? The diary just stopped suddenly, like the camper stopped writing out of the blue. I felt really scared when I realized that the person had been hanging around before. It seemed like they'd been doing it for a while, like it was a weird habit or something. I couldn't stop feeling worried. The police never found the person, and when I found that diary, it seemed like this might have happened before. I started thinking about other people who camped here before us. I wondered if they went through something scary too, and if that person is still out there scaring people at other camps. It's really creepy and makes you feel very uncomfortable. Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. I still think about that hike I did in the Sierra Nevada mountains 4 years back. It wasn't the usual path people take. I found it on the internet, a hidden trail not many know about. I've hiked a lot in those mountains before, so I felt pretty sure about my camping abilities. I wanted to hike for 3 days and camp for 2 nights. At first the trail was clear, but as I went further, it became less like a real path. I started to wonder if I was going the right way. I looked at my map and the quick notes I wrote on my phone when I was studying. I thought I might have gone the wrong way on the trail. I felt confused because the map didn't have any other paths I could take. Going back seemed like the right thing to do, but the sun was setting and I didn't want to get lost in the dark. I decided to set up my camp in the same spot where I was standing because it felt safer. I put up my tent fast without going through the usual setup process and decided to sleep. Later, in the middle of the night, I woke up suddenly because I needed to go to the bathroom. When I stepped out of my tent, I saw a flickering light far away. It looked like a campfire. It was weird to see a fire at that time. I wondered if it was someone else who got lost while hiking. I wanted to signal to the other campers by making my own fire. But as soon as I did, their fire went out. It made me really nervous because it didn't seem like a coincidence. I stayed awake all night, looking around for any signs of activity. When morning came, I quickly packed up, but I couldn't stop wondering about those mysterious campers. I took my pocket knife and went back to where the old fire was. No one was there, but I could see signs of the campfire and footprints. Nearby, there was a worn-out cabin surrounded by really good camping stuff, some old and some new. I felt worried because things didn't seem right. So I went back the way I came, hoping to find the correct path. Luckily, I saw a tree stump I remembered, and it showed me the right way. While camping, I remembered short talks I had with other people who were hiking or camping too. I met two people, Rachel and Max, when I stopped by a stream to get some water. They seemed like they knew a lot about exploring and told stories about their past adventures. Rachel was friendly and wanted to give me some tips on how to survive in the wild. Max was cheerful and made jokes about how scary it can be to get lost in the mountains. After a while, I found a spot without many trees and saw someone called Sam there. Sam was all by themselves, busy putting up their tent. They liked being alone on these paths and were a calm and nice person. We said hello and talked about how amazing the views were around us. As I was coming back from my trip, I kept thinking about the strange things I saw. I wondered if the people I met had also seen the weird campsite I found. What if they were led away from the main path like I was? When I got back to town, I told the police about what happened. I told them everything I remembered. They said they'd check it out, but I didn't hear anything from them for a long time. A month later, I saw a news article that surprised me. Some hikers, including Rachel, Max, and Sam, had disappeared in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Guess where they were last seen? Right where I found that strange campsite. The police thought something bad might have happened, but they didn't find proof. It really scared me. I worried. What if those hikers found the creepy campsite, like I did? That idea really scared me. Time went by, but the mystery stayed unsolved. I couldn't forget about the hikers who were missing. It made me feel uneasy for a long time. It showed how unexpected and scary things can be in nature.